Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be back at church. I haven't been here for a while, but the kids were sick. And so, but it's good to be back in the house of the Lord. This morning, I will share with you something I've been studying, and I ask you to pray in your hearts that the Lord will use me and the words will come from Him. This study is not something that it's finished, at least for me. I wasn't sure to use it this morning because I am continuing to study on the topic, but it's something that has caught my attention. We live in a world where everyone is rushing from one side to the other. We have work, we have commitments that we make outside of our work and our family, and we're always so busy. And then also we're very entertained. We have entertainment at our hands at all times, which sometimes becomes like a habit. Without even wanting or knowing what you're looking for, you're flipping to the phone and then you lose time there. It seems like our mind is always running on some kind of thought. It's difficult to quiet it down. But at the same time, in the Christian world, this phrase, sometimes just the first part, sometimes with the added verse address on it, but we see it everywhere. We see it in T-shirts, we see it in home decorations. It's everywhere. And I was just wondering, do we even know what that means? So that's what got me started on this path. What does it mean? Be still. The word "be still" comes from the Hebrew. It's written in Psalm 46, verse 10, which is our key text. Being in the Old Testament is Hebrew, and it's ra-fa. That's how you pronounce, which means to sink, to relax, to let drop. Be disheartened, to let go, to let fall from your hand, to desist from. So I was wondering why God says for us to be still. And I went looking for this word. It's used in the Old Testament 46 times. And looking at the verses, we're going to see here how it applies in the different places. So a few examples. 2 Chronicles 15, verse 7. Be strong, therefore, and let not your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. The word "be weak" is the same word, "be still." Let not your hand be still, because your work will be rewarded. In 2 Samuel chapter 4, verse 1, and this is the story of when David began to take his reign. It says, when Saul's son heard that Abner was dead in Hebron, his hands were feeble, and all the Israelites were troubled. So if we know this story, they had been fighting because Saul's son wanted to keep Israel for himself, and Abner was his captain. And when he died, then it says here, his hands were still, were feeble. Another example, Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 9. For they all made us afraid, saying, their hands shall be weakened from the work, that it be not done. Now, therefore, O God, strengthen my hands. This is the experience of Nehemiah with the rebuilding of the walls of the city. And the word "be weakened" is the same as "be still." So in this case, he's saying the report that was getting to him was that they were going to stop the work. And so he prays that the Lord will help them not to stop the work of rebuilding the walls. Judges chapter 8, verse 3, another example of the word be still. God has delivered unto your hands the prince of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. And what was I able to do in comparison to you? Then their anger was abated towards him when he had said that. In this example, we're talking about Gideon. When he started to fight, Ephraim wanted to be invited to that fight, but they were not invited. And yet, Gideon said, but you have done more without me than you would have done with me. So the fighting between them stopped. And that word, abated, is the same as be still. It was still. It finished. So a few more examples. Psalm 37, verse 8. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil. The word cease is the same word in Hebrew, rapha, or be still. Stop from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 13. Take fast hold of instruction. Let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. Let her not go is the same word, rapha, which means be still. Or, as we saw in the meaning, to relax, to drop, or let go. So Proverbs 18, verse 9. He also that is slothful in his work is brother to him that is a greater waster, or a great waster. The word slothful is the same, rapha, still, or be still. In Proverbs chapter 24, verse 10, it says, if thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. Same word again. Faint is be still. If you're still in the time of, or the day of adversity, thy strength is small. So 46 times in the Hebrew, and as we can see, most of them are telling us not to be still, not to let go. There was, in all of the ones that I presented here, there was only one, in the case of Gideon and Ephraim, where they said the stopping, the being still, was positive. But most of the time, we are told not to let go, not to be still. It has negative consequences. As we see in Proverbs 13, letting go or being still from the instruction will lead to destruction. Being slothful, being still in work, waste. And so, how come God is telling us, be still and know that I am God? I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. It's clear that there's also a positive. And so, let's see if we can find some examples of positive. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 31. For the Lord thy God is merciful God. He will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy father which he swore unto them. So in this case here, the word forsake, he will not be still. Who will not be still? God. God will not be still for thee. Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 6. Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid of them. For the Lord thy God, it is he that does go with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. The word fail is be still. He will not be still, nor forsake thee. Again, those two positive connotations to the word be still, it's God. God will not be still in protecting you and taking care of you. It's a promise and an assurance. But we as human, when the word says be still, it's different. It's a reminder sometimes for us to not do it. And so I was a little bit perplexed about it, because my idea of the word, when you see it in t-shirts and decorations and stuff, I had already made my mind what it meant for this verse, but I wanted to prove it, and so far I hadn't been able to prove my point. So let's see if there's more to this verse. I think the positives that I found were in a promise that God will not let us go. And one example of that was of positive be still was in Job chapter 27 verse 6. My righteousness I hold fast and will not let go. My heart shall not reproach me so long as I live. Now, a reminder of what the word means. Afa, to sink, to relax, to let drop, be disheartened. Doesn't apply here, right? Or does it? He's saying, my righteousness I hold fast and will not let go. So he wasn't going to be still. He wasn't going to let go of that. Job declares this after taking a long view of his life, after hearing his friends. This is towards the end of the book of Job. And he maintains that he is innocent. I will not be still. What's the application for us? Psalms 46 verse 10. Be still. In Matthew 11:28, Jesus says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Jesus calls us to come to him and do as he did. He was our example. Desire of Ages, page 363 says, as a man, he supplicated the throne of God till his humanity was changed with a heavenly current that should connect humanity with divinity. Through continual communion, he received life from God, that he may impart life to the world. His experience is to be ours. Come ye yourself apart, he bids us. If we would give heed to his word, we should be stronger and more useful. The disciples sought Jesus and told him all things, and he encouraged and instructed them. If today we would take time to go to Jesus and tell him our needs, we should not be disappointed. He would be at our right hand to help us. We need more simplicity, more trust, and confidence in our Savior. So, we are not to be busy like the world. In all who are under the training of God, it is to be revealed a life that is not in harmony with the world and its customs or its practice. And everyone needs to have a personal experience in obtaining a knowledge of the will of God. We must individually hear him speaking to the heart. When every other voice is hushed, and in quietness we wait before him, the silence of the soul makes more distinct the voice of God. He bids us, be still, and know that I am God. Here alone can true rest be found. Why be still then? It's so that we can hear him speak. As it says here, and this is from Desire of Ages, same page. We can apply Rapha, be still, in the sense of don't be of quieting ourselves, right? Not being in a rush. Taking time to hear his voice, which is only audible when we are quiet. And this is the effectual preparation for all who labor for God. Amid the hurrying throne and the strains of life's intense activity, the soul that is thus refreshed will be surrounded with an atmosphere of light and peace. The life will breathe out fragrance, and this is the effectual preparation for all who labor for God. I'm sorry, I copied it twice. Amid the hurrying throne and the strains of life's intense activity, the soul that is thus refreshed will be surrounded with an atmosphere of light and peace. The life will breathe out a fragrance and will reveal a divine power that will reach man's heart. So this is the preparation we need if we want to work for God. Is the preparation for labor. But as we read before, we are not to be like the world. The world is full of sickness, full of stress. Sickness of the mind prevails everywhere. 9/10 of the disease from which men suffer have their foundation here. On what? On being busy all the time. Not giving yourself time. So where is the foundation? In our ability to be still, to let go, to trust. So then the key of the verse is not in just being still, it's in the next part, which we're going to see. Let's read this. Talking about the diseases. Let the mind become intelligent, and the will be placed on the Lord's side, and there will be a wonderful improvement in the physical health, the medical missionary. This is from Medical Missionary. Heaven is all health, and the more deeply heavenly influences are realized, the more sure will be the recovery. Godliness does not conflict with the laws of health, but are in harmony with them. The fear of the Lord is the foundation of real prosperity. We should cooperate with God in the care of our bodies. Love for God is essential for life and health. Faith in God is essential for health. In order to have perfect health, our hearts must be filled with love and hope and joy in the Lord. So again, the key is not just be still, which is the part that many people know, and it's mentioned a lot. The key is in the next part of the verse, and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. I am God. When the child seeks to get nearest to his father above every other person, he shows his love, his faith, and his perfect trust. That's what we see with children. When they want to get close to us, they trust us, they love us, and that's what we need to see also as we get close to God. Let's see some examples of knowing God. Genesis chapter 22, verses 1 through 14, is the experience of Abraham when God asked him to offer Isaac. Something that God doesn't usually ask, right, for human sacrifice. Actually, he said, no, that's not, right, it's a sin. And yet, when God said for him to offer Isaac, Abraham knew his voice. He had no doubt of who was asking. And so when we see in we don't have the time to read the whole thing, but verse 3, it says, and Abraham rose up early in the morning, saddled his ass, took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clay wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place which God had told him. And then verse 8, as they go on the trip, we know the story. Isaac asked him, where's the lamb? We forgot to bring the lamb. And Abraham answer is, my son, God will provide himself a lamb. All heaven beheld this experience with wonder and admiration at Abraham's unfaltering obedience. All heaven applauded his fidelity. And in verse 12, when the angel stops Abraham's hand, he says what? And now I know that you fear God. Abraham had learned the voice of God from years of talking to him. For him, knowing who God was progressive, because we know his story. We know how many times he failed before. One of the failures was in not waiting for God to do what he had promised by having Ishmael. But by this time, Abraham knew who God was. To him, God was the God that provides. Now let's look at another example. Moses. Exodus 3, verses 1 through 18, is the experience of Moses in the burning bush. Again, we are very familiar with the story. But verse 4, it says, and when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush, and said, Moses, Moses, I am he. And he said, here I am. Here I am. Now, I wasn't prepared for this one. This is like something new that I didn't know. But here's the commentary in Youth Instruction, December 20, 1900. It says, never could Moses describe the impression made upon his mind by the sight that he saw, and by the sound of the voice that spoke to him. But this impression was never effaced. Heaven came near him. What wonderful condescension for God to leave the heavenly courts and manifest himself to Moses, talking with him face to face as a man speaketh unto his friend. As you continue to read the experience in the chapter, you see then God calling him and telling him that he's seen the people of Israel and their suffering and that he's calling them out. So as I think about this, and knowing that this experience never again, it never lost its power in him. I believe that for Moses, God was the God that called. Joshua 5, verse 13 and 15. 13 to 15. And this experience, here Moses has died and left them. And now Joshua is in charge of bringing the people into the new land. His job was mostly to fight. He was the captain of Israel. Most of what he did was fight to conquer the land. And here, one day, as they are about to enter into what they were about to conquer Jericho, Joshua gets up early in the morning and he sees a man fully prepared for battle. His question is in verse 14, and he said in verse 13, "Are you from one of us, or are you an enemy?" And that reveals how much Joshua's mind was as a captain of Israel. Because that's the thing that he says. Are you going to fight against or for me? And the answer in verse 14, it says, "And he said, Nay, but as a captain of the host of the Lord, I am now come." If the eyes of Joshua had been open, as were the eyes of the servant of Elisha at Dothan, and he could have endured the sight, he would have seen the angels of the Lord encamped about the children of Israel. For the trained army of heaven had come to fight for the people of God, and the captain of the Lord's host was there to command. When Jericho fell, no human hand touched the walls of the city, for the angel of the Lord overthrew the fortifications and entered the fortress of the enemy. It was not Israel, but the captain of the Lord's host that took Jericho. But Israel had their part to act to show their faith in the captain of their salvation. I believe that for Joshua, after this experience, and he knew that God had helped him in many other battles. He was like a child born in the church. You know, and you obey and you do, but there are moments that mark your life. And I believe that this was a moment that marked his life. He never forgot that the captain in reality was God. To him, God was the captain. And then looking in the New Testament, this experience really touched my heart. And we're going to spend some time here with this woman. It's in Matthew 15, verse 21 to 28. The Canaanitish woman? Yeah. In verse 25, just in case we don't know this story, this woman was in the border of Phoenicia, where the people there worship all kinds of gods. But they also had Israelites that lived among them. And this woman had a daughter that was possessed. And so here in verse 25, she comes to Jesus and worship him saying, "Lord, help me." Verse 28, then Jesus answered and said unto him, "O woman," but before we go there, this is the answer. He does grant her request. "O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt." And her daughter was made whole from that hour. But we know in between there are verses that explain this experience. And it wasn't as easy as it sounds. She just asked and he gave it to her. She was determined to get help. She had heard of him. And before that, she had sought help from the heathen gods, but had obtained no relief. Inspired by a mother's love, she determined to present her daughter's case to him. It was her resolute purpose to bring her affliction to Jesus. He must heal her child. The interesting thing is that she had heard about Jesus, but they hadn't told her where to find him. And so Christ knew of this woman's situation, and he placed himself within her reach. He knew that she was longing to see him, and he placed himself in her path by ministering to her sorrow. But although Jesus, and so we see the woman asking, and at some point Jesus is just ignoring. The disciples thought that he wasn't going to help her, and they wanted to shoo her away. And then Jesus tell her, I didn't come to help you. I came to help the ones from my country. Right? Do you remember how he referred to her? I came to feed the people on the table, not the dogs. Anybody else would have been discouraged. But she wasn't. Although Jesus did not reply, the woman did not lose faith. As he passed on, as if not hearing her, she followed him, continuing her supplications. The woman urged her case with increased earnestness, bowing at Christ's feet and crying, Lord, help me. The answer of, I didn't come to give food to the dogs, would have discouraged anybody else. But this woman saw that her opportunity had come, and beneath the apparent refusal of Jesus, she saw a compassion that he could not hide. Truth, Lord, she answered, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs that fall from their master's table. While the children of the household eat at the Father's table, even the dogs are not left unfed. They have a right to the crumbs that fall from the table abundantly supplied. So while there were many blessings given to Israel, was there not also a blessing for her? She was looked upon as a dog, and has she not then a dog's claim to a crumb of his bounty? That was her thought. So I believe that to this woman, God is a God that answers. Especially after all her struggles with the other gods that she tried to get help and never got any help. And after all this experience where the disciples are telling her, go away, leave us be. And Jesus says, I came for the children. When she got the answer, this was the God that answers. She never forgot this. Be still and know. Who is God to you? An intensity as never before seen is taking possession of the world. In amusement, in money-making, in the contest for power, in the very struggle for existence, there is a terrible force that engrosses body, mind, and soul. In the midst of this maddening rush, God speaks. He bids us come apart and commune with him. Be still and know that I am God. So do we not stop? We do. We stop for Sabbath, right? We don't work on Sabbath, so we have church on Sabbath. That's our time. Maybe we have worship in the morning and the evenings. But here, look what it says. Many, even in their season of devotion, fail of receiving the blessing of real communion with God. They are in too great a haste. With hurried steps, they press through the circle of Christ's loving presence, pausing perhaps for a moment within the sacred precincts, but not waiting for counsel. They have no time to remain with the divine teacher. With their burdens, they return to their work. These workers can never attain the highest success until they learn the secret of strength. They must give themselves time to think, to pray, to wait upon God for a renewal of physical, mental, and spiritual power. They need the uplifting influence of His Spirit. Receiving this, they will be quickened by fresh life. The weary frame and tired brain will be refreshed. The burdened heart will be lightened. We don't need to just pause for a moment in His presence. We need personal contact with Christ, to sit down in companionship with Him. This is our need. Happy will it be for the children of our home and the students of our schools when parents and teachers shall learn in their own life the precious experience pictured in the words of Songs of Solomon. Let's open our Bible. Songs of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 3 and 4. It's not a book that we use often, but it's right after Ecclesiastes. And Songs of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 3 and 4. And it says, "As the lily among thorns, so is my love among the daughters. As the apple tree among the trees of the wood, so is my beloved among the sons. I sat down under his shadow with great delight, and his fruit was sweet to my taste." Unless we take the time to spend with Jesus, not just pause, but really truly spend time with Him, to delight to be with Him, we will not gain the strength that He is willing to give us. So, be still. Stop fighting the battle. Let go of your worries. When care and perplexity surround you, when distress and discourage, you are almost ready to yield to despair, look. Oh, look to where, with the eyes of faith, you last saw the light, and the darkness that encompasses you will be dispelled by the bright shining of His glory. What this means to me is that we need to look back to who God is to us. If at some point, like Moses, like Joshua, like Abraham, we had that experience that defined who God is to us, let's look back to that point to be reminded of the God that is the captain, the God that calls, the God that answers, the God that provides. Who is God to us? When sin struggles for the mastery in your soul and burdens the conscience, when unbelief clouds the mind, go to the Savior. His grace is sufficient to subdue sin. He will pardon us, making us joyful in God. There are other examples in the Bible that I'm still studying. But you can remember a few. The woman, Mary Magdalene, who do you think God was to her? When she was brought before Jesus, was the first time that she saw Him. She was about to lose her life. To her, God was a God that restored her, because He said, "Go and sin no more." He was the one that was able to take her out of that life that she was living. When Peter, after Jesus was resurrected, and he asked, "Do you love me?" Who was God to him then? What was the experience that he had had just before? His last experience with Jesus before this. Wasn't it when he denied him? So to Peter, God was the God that forgives. That said, I love you. Do you love me? Who is God to us? That is the key of this verse. Come unto me, I will give you rest. Be still and know that I am God. I will continue to study this, and I believe that God at some point gives us a revelation of who he is that will impact our life. And as we continue to grow in him, if we never let go of that impression, he will reveal more facets of who he is. But that impression can be just like for Moses, something that never fades. May we hold on to that impression.